All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Chowdhury Show, where we interview some of the world-class experts in various fields, including IT, information technology, business, entrepreneurship, marketing, you name it. These are all world-class experts. And today on the show, we are actually diving into the world of cybersecurity and identity and access management with none other than Valerie Goldman. Valerie is a powerhouse in the identity and access management space. She spent over 6 years architecting secure, scalable solutions for some of the biggest enterprises on the planet. She is currently a senior sales engineer at Ping Identity and previously helped global clients tackle identity challenges as a consultant at Okta. Valerie is not just fluent in tech, from Auth 2.0 to Auth 0 to Zero Trust and AI Ops. She's also a translator of security needs into real-world business wins. With industry certifications like Okta Certified Consultant, AWS Cloud Practitioner, Scrum Master, Valerie brings the perfect blend of deep engineering knowledge and executive level strategy. So if you're looking into breaking into the world of cybersecurity or identity access management, this episode is definitely going to be your blueprint. So let's roll. So Valerie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for that great introduction as well.
Awesome. Awesome. So Valerie, take us back. So what was your very first job in tech, and how did this lead you toward identity and access management?
That's a great question. So my background was never in tech. I was never in any STEM related fields. My whole life, I planned on being an attorney. In undergrad, I majored in political science and criminal justice. I had several minors. I went to law school. And then I was at an impasse. I didn't know what I wanted to do because I realized I liked learning more about the law than practicing it. But I needed my brain to be stimulated. I need to be challenged. But I also, I like tech. I like the newness. I like how it's always adapting. And I went to a coding boot camp and learned how to program in about 90 days. And my first actual tech job was a software engineer at Vanguard. So I'm working on, Roth IRAs, 401k platforms. And that was kind of my exposure to how do we make sure our customers' data is secure, right? We're dealing with 401ks, Roth IRAs. We're a financial institution. So we have social security numbers, all bits and pieces. And that was kind of my first exposure to cybersecurity, but also tech in the sense of building. And I learned in that role that only building software for me, not for everyone, but for me is very isolating. So I need to find a hybrid of how can I still be technical, but also bridge that gap and still have the opportunity to interact with people on a regular basis and assist or consult them.
Awesome. Wow. Quite a journey for sure, going from getting into law, then to stumbling into IT. I feel like I hear that kind of story all too common. I don't know too many fifth graders
Very
that can
common.
today say that they want to become a cybersecurity expert or identity and access management guru. So
Right.
that's exactly why we have this podcast, right? So those fifth graders could say that, hey, when I grow up one day, I would like to be a Auth 2.0, expert.
Right. Well, tech is vast, right? Like, I think there are so many different avenues in tech. So many people don't even know where to start. I never heard of sales engineer or solutions engineer, and I'm sure yourself, you understand what the industry. There's so many names for very similar jobs or tech adjacent jobs. So navigating that is already a burden in itself, right? No one goes to school, no one goes to college and majors in solutions engineering, right? Like
Right.
you either get the bucket of computer science or, some cybersecurity certification, but it doesn't tell you the various different verticals within tech. Very similar to law and medical, you can specialize in real estate law or intellectual properties. In tech, it's also very similar in the sense that you have areas that you can specialize in, right? Cybersecurity is broad, but the verticals are very narrow.
Absolutely. Makes total sense. So Valerie, if someone asked you in plain English, what exactly do you do as an identity access management expert? How would you explain it to your mom?
um, I would explain it as, and everyone says it differently. And the reason why it's different is because it depends on how you treat your role, right? And I would essentially say I'm a digital storyteller or a technical storyteller, and I I solve my customers' problems in regards to my industry. So I'm always looking for a new way to simplify something, to make something easier, and to make it more secure for my customers.
Mhm.
And you tell me there's a problem, and I fix it.
That's a very good way to put it, right? You're a solutions, basically a solutions engineer, right? You're finding the problems, you're identifying solutions, and then you're working with teams to implement that solution and managing that process. That totally makes sense. So, you've architected some amazing IAM solutions for a lot of Fortune 500 companies. What do you feel like, what are some common mistakes that companies make when it comes to identity management?
I would say a common mistake would be people don't like change.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of companies are like, hey, no one wants to download an app on their mobile device. No one wants to add another feature for security. I just want to click one login and just get access to everything that I need. But as we know in today's tech landscape, that's dangerous. So trying to convince people that these other steps are in place to protect you is a much harder thing, right? I think I always give the example when you teach a kid how to ride a bike, they just want to ride a bike. They don't care about their helmet, right? And the same thing
Right.
applies to tech, right? You don't want to deal with all the different hoops you have to jump through, but then when something bad happens, you wish they were there. So we
Hmm.
oftentimes go through explaining to people why a little bit more friction or a little bit more security is better for them and why change is good. Because with tech, every year there's a new attack, there's a new technology. And if you're sitting in the past, you'll definitely run into major issues. So, I mean, think about it now. We deal with AI today, and
Hmm.
one major issue are deepfakes. People have fake LinkedIn pictures.
Hmm.
They interview virtually with fake avatars, and it's hard to
Hmm.
identify real people. So we're constantly trying to encourage people to not only stay knowledgeable, but also like get ready for change.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point that you brought up. I've been hearing all these crazy stories about these fake AI models on Instagram that have like built this massive followings. Then
Yes,
they have faked their way to like some big name football games and all this kind of stuff. They have all these
it's
videos and
real.
pictures of
It's a
them.
real thing.
And deepfakes have been around for a while. If I remember
Yes.
correctly, I remember seeing a very famous one of, I think it was like, what's that famous actor? He's in a lot of action movies. Anyway, it was like a very famous actor. I think he did a deep fake of himself as a younger version, and it went
Oh, okay.
completely
Yeah.
viral. I can't think of the name of the
Oh,
actor off the
yeah.
top of my head, but this is um this is definitely a big one that's coming our way for sure. A lot of people are
Yeah.
just drafting so many different types of AI video content, and then they're taking pictures and turning them into videos of things that have never really happened. So
Yep.
you can just
I mean, think
imagine
about
how
it.
many.
Think about like our parents getting scammed, right? Like now they can
Mhm.
take audio from our normal phone interactions and make it
Right.
seem like, we're in jeopardy and we need your help or we need immediate cash. Like these advances are really impacting our industry and we're trying our best to combat it with advancing our own technology.
Definitely, definitely. So another concept I wanted to bring up, let's talk a little bit about zero trust. It's a pretty, big buzzword these days, but how do you actually see it being implemented or misrepresented in real world scenarios? And what is it? What is zero trust?
That's a fantastic question. So I will put my legal cap on like I used to. So I grew up watching Law and Order. I'm sure like anybody has seen some type of a cop show or a legal show or anything. And I know you often hear, especially in the US, like you're innocent until proven guilty,
Mm-hmm.
right? It is the polar opposite in technology. You are guilty until you're proven innocent, right? We put things in place to check if you are a malicious actor before we give you access to anything. Because if we don't do that, you can run into some issues. So essentially, zero trust is ensuring that whoever you are who you say you are, and you have access to the appropriate resources that you're trying to get access to. And what we often see is when it is a broad network of access, right? If it's a huge company, hundreds and thousands of whether it's customers or employees, a lot of people in the interface, there can be someone who falls through the cracks and gets access to something they're not supposed to. So a good example of this is, you know, if you have you're at a hotel or you're at a resort, your key card only works for your room and the shared spaces, but you can't get into the employee lounge, right? And the same thing happens with zero trust. We make sure that you only have access to what you're supposed to have access to. I think how it's implemented is that we analyze the company itself, right? We don't want to impose any additional friction for a company that doesn't need it, right? If you're just, hey, you can log in and read a bunch of books. If all your books are open to any person of any age, we're not going to restrict anything, right? But of course, if you want to limit certain things for certain age groups, then you might want to add some restrictions. Another example of this is financial institutions, right? You only want to see your bank account. You don't want to see anybody else's information. Even if it's someone in your family, you don't want to have that access. So zero trust allows us to analyze each user and their access. And when it's not implemented is oftentimes when we see major breaches, right? When we see a disgruntled employee has been let go and they still have access to files that they share to different people, right? An NDA is one thing, but when a disgruntled employee is like, hey, something bad happened to me at this company, I'm going to share it with the world. Realistically, that person shouldn't have had access once they've been terminated. So
Right.
oftentimes what we see is major breaches are typically in line with companies that don't have zero trust. Because again, when we think about zero trust, it's not just the front door, it's the back door and everything in between. So it's not just logging in, but it's security on top of every single resource that you're trying to get to. And some people try and safeguard or I guess skip a few steps along the way, and that's dangerous.
Right. So I would imagine this would be especially important for people that have access to extremely privileged information. I think in the identity access management space, you're calling it PAM, privileged access management, right? So are there any specific restrictions or even more meticulous ways of, governing this process for people, let's just say like a CEO or CFO who has access to very, very private information about a company?
Yes. I mean, when it comes to limiting access or even reviewing access, typically what happens is that there's a certification process. So we don't want to give someone, and even a CEO, we don't want to give any person unlimited access for an unlimited amount of time, right? We want to be able to review it on a regular basis, whether that's weekly, monthly, quarterly, depending on the user. And we also want to track the user's behavior as well to see if it's normal, right? If we see an anomaly, we want to make sure that we're notified of it and double check if that's actually who the person is, right? So we go through certification processes, reviewing the access. We also apply different levels of security, whether it's regular MFA or adaptive MFA. And really, adaptive MFA should automatically be the use now because so many people have various different devices. They travel in this remote world. I mean, I could be in Philadelphia one day and Seattle the next day. So I want to make sure that that's a normal behavior. So you want to make sure that you have multiple steps. The first, again, is that, assessing or certifying that access, but the others are analyzing the behavior.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, the career aspect of cybersecurity, right? So we've got a lot of things out there in the market. As you noted, there's so many different areas. There's Auth 2.0, Auth 0, there's Ping, there's Okta, there's SailPoint, AWS. I mean, the beginner can get extremely, frustrated and confused hearing so many different things to learn. So it's kind of like an alphabet soup, right? So how would you say that a beginner should think about all of this? Like, what should they focus on first if they want to start learning identity access management?
I think the first thing to do is ask yourself, are you learning identity and access management to learn it, or are you learning it for a specific job? And the reason why is because all those companies that you just mentioned, they're all best of breed in something, but not everything. You'll notice in the industry that a lot of companies have very similar products or similar names. But typically, what happens is the reason why they've all gained popularity is because there's one product or one suit or suite of products that they are really, really good at.
Mm.
For example, SailPoint is like the identity governance engine, right? Like everyone wants to go there for identity governance. Some organizations handle much larger and more complex solutions like Ping Identity. Some places are more focused on the cloud, like Okta. So it really depends on what you're looking for. And I would say if you're looking for a job and also wanting to learn, focus on a company that stands out to you, right? Focus on something that either you like the culture or you like their product suite. Because typically what happens if you narrow it down to a company that you really like, it's best that you take the certification exams for that company. I would never recommend taking, all of these certifications because they're not necessary, right? If you take a SailPoint certification, a CyberArk certification, Okta and Ping Identity, everyone's going to know that you took them all, but like we would rather you specialize in one particular suite because what happens is even if you don't get a job at that company, there are companies that need experts in those specific companies, like an Okta expert or a Ping Identity expert hired as a consultant at their team. So there's
Mm.
definitely a lot of options. And I would say pick a company that you find more interesting and take their certification exams.
Got it. Do you feel like it's possible that if you just picked one company to focus on, is it possible that your skill set might not be broad enough given the market's demands?
No, I wouldn't say that. I would say if you focus on one, the knowledge is definitely transferable, right?
Mm.
So, I came from Okta and I have multiple certifications from Okta, and I had no Ping identity certifications, but because they knew that I was in the identity space and I had certifications from one of the competitors, they were just like, you know what? You know enough about our industry to come over and take certifications here, right? So really, if you're just trying to get your foot in the door, you can get the foundational certifications from any company of your choosing, and that will already show an interviewer, hey, she knows enough to get started. She can take the rest
Mm.
on later.
Got it. Totally makes sense. And you brought up a really interesting point, which I want to spend a few minutes on. This, like let's just say a beginner, I'm a beginner. I've got all these skills. I've taken a couple of certifications. So what's next? Like, how do I actually land the job? So if you could share with us some of the best practices that you've seen in the industry or you've taken yourself in terms of, how to craft a solid resume. Does LinkedIn matter? And if so, what parts of it matter? How should we approach this whole job searching process in this whole industry?
Whew, that's a loaded question. I would say one, LinkedIn does matter. LinkedIn matters for a variety of reasons. One, it is literally the social media of the workforce, right? Like the professional world. And if it looks like you're not active, you don't even have a profile picture, recruiters use LinkedIn religiously. I cannot tell you how many times I have gotten job opportunities via LinkedIn. And the reason being is because my LinkedIn is my resume, right?
Mm.
When you go to my LinkedIn, it literally has every single thing from my resume in it. So if someone were to ever do a background check on what my experience has been, it's accessible, right? It's also verified. meaning that it's connected to my work email. So they know that my job is legitimate, right? I'm not just someone, again, because of the deep fakes and because of what we've seen with interview fraud, there are a lot of LinkedIn profiles that are not authentic. So the more authentic you can make it, that is going to make a recruiter easily say, okay, this is a real person. Let me reach out to them.
Right.
Then I would say, as far as preparation goes, number 2 is leaning on your network. If you don't have friends now, make friends. If you don't know anybody in the industry, reach out to people, right? If you're looking for a solutions engineer, sales engineer, solutions architect, any type of role like that, find someone in your area, find someone at a company that you like, and just Slack them on, LinkedIn, message them, right? Reach out to them. Doesn't have to be anything, formal. Just say, hey, I'm interested. If you have time for a chat, I'd love to learn more about your job. I can't tell you how many times people have done that for me. I love talking to people. I love giving people insight of the industry. And I think that gives you like an authentic, not like, interview heavy type of perspective. And you kind of get the best of both worlds. And then last, I would say, I would say if you are looking for a job to prepare, that's why your network is important. Do mock interviews and study with your peers. So if you see a job that you like, assess the job rec, see what requirements you need, see what you need to learn, and also practice and brush up on your public speaking, because our role requires us to talk, whether it's in person or virtual, to CISOs and CTOs, the C-suite and more. So you want to be able to be confident in your, your speaking acumen and also your technical acumen.
Yeah, those are some very, very, very good points that you just brought up, which perfectly segues into the next question I wanted to ask you, which, are, what do you believe are some of these underestimated skill sets in this space? You mentioned a couple of them, right? Just being able to speak with authority to C-suite executives. But do you feel like there are other skill sets that the market is in shortage of that someone coming into this space could try to capitalize on? And if so, what do you think those skills are?
Absolutely. You have to be an avid listener, because oftentimes people in our industry do not know the challenge or pain that their company is going through, right? Because by the time, if you come to us after a breach, it's probably too late, right? Now we're trying to fix, a burning building. But we oftentimes speak to customers who haven't experienced a breach yet. And they'll say, you know what, everything in my company is working fine. I don't really need anything from you. And you want to, a newer person would say, all right, this opportunity is done. I'm going to move on. It's not a big deal. But to really be successful in this field, you have to be extremely empathetic and also an avid listener, because again, you're acting as a consultant, you're acting as an advisor, you're acting as someone who is going to give the best advice to the CEO or CISO. So you have to get on their level and understand their business value, not just technical. You have to understand where their dollars and cents are going, what their goals are for the next year. So you understand the broader picture of what they need and try to help them achieve that, not thinking about tech, just achieve their goals. I would also say, I think the standard, it's very typical in tech. You got to be a self-starter, right? Like you got to come up with a solution. You got to be the person who thinks outside the box. And oftentimes that's not going to be something you find in your company tech suite or what you find on ChatGPT or Google. You have to think outside the box, and you have to be willing to test a bunch of things to see if it works, and also be flexible to rip it out and start over again to, again, meet your customer's needs. So you have to be very accommodating to the needs of your customer.
Definitely. Yeah, a lot of what I've heard is from you is basically, really good listening skills, really good speaking skills, being very keen and attentive to the specific pain points that companies are having. And, as the saying goes, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. So building a really strong network of people that are living and breathing this kind of work every day. So you can start picking up those jargon, right? Those terminologies, those ways of thinking, the people they associate with, the companies that they're talking to, So once you're kind of putting yourself in that space and you're living and breathing this, and all of your friends are doing, identity access management, cybersecurity, it's only a matter of time before you'll also start to speak like them, act like them, think like them, and be engaged
Exactly.
in those same circles, right? I think that's a very good piece of information that you've given, which I've seen as a gap in the IT space, specifically in tech spaces, that a lot of us tend to just kind of want to be in our little corner and code away and do our own thing, right? Which is great, and a lot of us are very, very good at that, and that's why we're experts in technical work. However, we're kind of lacking that connection to the business world,
Right.
which is all about collaboration, communication, exchanging ideas. So even if you're a world-class expert software developer, but you can't communicate what you know and you can't work in a team, you will see a pretty sharp limit to how far you can go in your industry, right? Wouldn't
Oh,
you say that's true?
absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, I think the number one rule is you have to be a chameleon. You have to adapt to every single team, environment, project that you're thrown into, right? Because everything's connected in some capacity. The tech side is connected to business, even though people see that there's a gap. Solutions engineers, solutions architects, we're the ones that bridge that gap. And that's why our role is so crucial, because we do work both sides of our brain. We can be extremely technical, but we can also explain a complex solution to a 5-year-old. And that's really important. You can't silo yourself in any company, right? So you have to be able to kind of get outside of your comfort zone and adapt to the conversations of the people at the big table, right? You got to be able
Mhm.
to talk to the C-suite and feel confident and comfortable as well.
Definitely. Definitely. Very good advice. So we're kind of moving into the last segment, part of our podcast segment, which is basically, let's talk a little bit about learning. Like, how do you stay sharp? What does your learning stack look like? And are there any specific blogs, podcasts, YouTube channels, people, industry experts that you follow? Like, how did you learn all this stuff?
Um, I can be better, so I will admit that. I do not watch any particular podcasts or actually, yeah, I don't listen to any podcasts, but I don't know if it's I don't think it's a maybe it is a blog post. It's called Bite to Bite. It's so good. It's like very, very simple explanations of like IAM functionalities, like what's
Mm,
federation and breaks it down. And it always includes some really great architecture or what's a SAML connection, what's, auth 2.0. Like it just breaks simple things down that I feel comfortable sharing with my customers. Plus, it's public. I always run into them on LinkedIn. So anytime I see an architecture that I'm like, oh my God, that's so simple, I send it to my teammates, I send it to my customers. It's super simple and informative. But as far as additional learning, I mean, I use LinkedIn actually as a resource. I follow all of the top companies in my industry. I follow people at all of those companies. I make friends at all of those companies. I also see what conferences are going on, what webinars are free, or if there's ones that you have to pay for to see if my company would pay for it. I try and hear as many talks as possible or as many presentations because one, that's just how I learn. I am a visual audio learner, right?
mhm.
I'm not great at reading, huge tech books. I would rather interact with someone to learn. And I think with LinkedIn, there's so many different webinars that are presented, so many different events that are presented up there that I attend and learn what's great in the industry, right? I can
Definitely.
see what company had a major layoff, see why that company made the change, and see what customers or companies are impacted by it, right? And then gauge what I need to learn to see how I can strategize to either get that company or speak to a customer there or just learn what's going on in the industry. I also, I'm not a big finance person, but I definitely pay attention to NASDAQ, and I pay attention to companies that are on the rise in the
Mhm.
tech space because oftentimes we'll see is like, AI is on the rise right now. What does that look like? What does that look like for the future of many companies? So I oftentimes try to focus on one particular area in tech and kind of deep dive there, but also continuously learn in the IAM space.
Absolutely. Yeah, those are some absolute nuggets that you dropped, for sure. Those are things that I know. I for sure know that I've implemented some of those things and I've seen the results that it could bring for me. But also, I would add to that, one of the things that's worked well for me is just reaching out to experts like yourself. You know, if you see that you're trying to learn a skill set and you're browsing through LinkedIn or Upwork and Fiverr, looking at people's profiles, and you see someone has those exact skill sets, you'd be surprised if you just simply reach out to someone and say, "Hey, I would love to learn that from you. You know, would you be interested in coaching me? Would you be interested in mentoring me?" You know, whether it's hiring them as a coach and paying them, or bartering, or even just asking for some general guidance and support. I think that mentorship is huge because let's be real, like life is too short to make all of the mistakes ourselves and learn from those mistakes. It's way easier to simply find someone who's already made those mistakes or learn from their mistakes and is already down the road. It's kind of like you're going on the highway. You may not need someone steering your car, but you need someone to at least tell you, hey, take a right here, go right here. Because the worst mistakes a lot of times you can make is to go down the wrong path. So I think from that
Yes.
perspective, having those mentors that can kind of give you the shortcut plan, hey, these are the things you need to actually focus on. There's millions of tools, but focus on these things. There's gazillions of certifications, but you need to focus on these ones. There's hundreds of companies, but you should focus on these five, right? I think just that framework, there's all these different types of jobs, but I think this one, and this
Yeah,
one makes the most sense given your interest and your skill set. I think
for
that can
sure.
really save a lot of time for someone who wants to kind of, go into the career and quickly rise up the ranks, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would say one, that's how we met. I would also say that's just a testament to everything in the industry. Knock on wood, I have not, fortunately, I haven't met one person who didn't want to help me. Um, but asking for help, one, is like the easiest thing, and it's super encouraged. Whether you're in the job, you're looking for a job, you're transitioning, always, always, always ask for help. There's always going to be someone who was in your position and now they are where they want to be, and they're happy to help anyone start their journey. I also think it's great to ask for help because you're broadening your network, right? The more
Right.
people you know, the better it is, right? Because eventually you'll have a network where I'm looking for a job. I can just call a friend who's going to send in a referral. And that's when you know that you're winning. When you have
Hmm.
people at all the companies that you want to go to, when you have a network that can, if you don't know somebody there, someone can connect you with someone. And as long as people are willing to help, the tech industry will continue to grow because that's really the foundation of it, right? People learning from other people.
Absolutely. And I've seen that even in me just interacting with a lot of people in this space, and that tech industry people are very, very willing to help each other. And I've really appreciated that a lot about just about anybody that I've ever reached out to. So we're almost coming up on time, Valerie. I do want to leave a couple more questions really quickly for you before we're out of time.
Okay.
If someone wants to pivot into identity access management and they had let's just say the next 12 months, they want to land a job, what do you think would be step one they should take right now, like tonight? What do they need to do?
Number one, look for associate sales engineers, solutions engineer roles, or entry level SE roles. They will explain to you how much experience you need to have, what technology you need to know. Oftentimes, if you're looking on LinkedIn, you'll actually be able to see if the hiring manager is there and possibly like message the hiring manager and see what they're looking for. Um, and when you find that job or job postings, use ChatGPT. Like plug in your resume and see, how do I make my resume accommodate this job? What am I missing? How do I update it? What do I need to learn? Right? Use AI as a tool to prepare you for creating a curriculum. If it's 6 months, 12 months, ChatGPT will help you do that based off the job that you found. So I would say that's number one, because once you find that, then you can narrow down who you need to reach out to, what you need to learn, and how long it's going to take.
Hmm. Great advice. Love it. All right. My last question before we start wrapping things up is, if you lost all of your experience today that you have currently, right? All of your work experience, but you kept your knowledge, and you had to break back into the identity access management space from scratch, how would you do it?
Whew, that's a tough question. How would I do it? All right. So all of my experience is gone?
Yeah, you've never worked a job in day in your life, but you have all of your knowledge. So you know all your stuff. It's all in here. But on your resume, it just says you just graduated college. What would you do?
If I had all of my knowledge, but no experience. Oh, I actually know what I would, yeah, never mind. If I had no experience, like I just graduated from college, but I had all the technical acumen that I have at this very moment, a lot of the companies in the identity and access management space have free trials. I would 1,000% see if they have an opening, spin up a free trial, and build out the most complex solution that I know of. And apply to the job and tell them, hey, I built something that I would actually like to show you guys, and spin it that way. I like to treat all interviews as speed dating. And my goal is to make you like me and make it confident that you know I can do the job. So I would already be going into the interview, already building something that whatever they throw at me, it won't matter.
It's great advice. Great advice. I've used that kind of tactic even myself during an interview when they say, hey, tell us about a time when you've gathered requirements and written those requirements down. And I'm like, do you mind if I share my screen and show you a project that
Yep.
where I've done that, and basically take them through something, of course, protect any kind of personal identifiable
Of
information,
course,
that kind of
yeah.
stuff. But if you build out those kind of projects, say in a GitHub profile, or you've written up an article in Medium where you've explained step by step how you've done a integration or configuration or connected two systems together or gathered requirements. People love that. I think hiring
Oh my
managers,
gosh, it's
they love seeing
huge.
it
It's
because
huge.
it's hard to challenge that, right? You're literally
It's
walking them through
practical
step by
work.
step.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
practical, hands-on work that you can talk about. And I learned this when I first got into software engineering, because every software engineering job, you have to take an exam to show if you can program. But then, like, they ask you, like, you've never worked a day in your life. What do you do in your free time? Oftentimes they'll say, like, did you build anything? Did you build any small application that you could talk about? And what's great is, like, YouTube has so many code with me videos, or like even in the IAM space, like there's so many like demos of people building out solutions with Okta or Ping or Microsoft. So it's really great that even if you don't know anything, you can go to YouTube, look for someone building something, and just follow along and build it with them. So by the time you get to that interview, you have something to show. You have a project, you have a Git repository, you have something that can show your hiring manager, hey, I'm not just sitting around looking for a job. I'm showing you that I'm actually doing the work without anybody telling me to do it.
Awesome
And that
advice.
shows you're a self-starter. So they love that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It sure does. And a lot of companies will value that over the level of technical knowledge you have. They will love that initiative. They will love that you're a go-getter,
Always.
that you're going outside of thinking outside of the box and providing them with showing them a solution, or you're approaching is things, in a very go-getter type of mentality, right? I think they really love that in people. So that's
Oh,
really
yeah.
solid advice. My final question for you for today, Valerie, is if you had to recommend one book that has been absolutely life-changing for you that you think everybody in the planet should read, what would be that one book and why?
One book that everyone should read. Man, I was like, what books do I have behind me? I don't read. I don't read a ton. Oh, well, it depends. It depends. Is it more like tech work related, or
Nope, any
is
kind of
it,
book you think everybody should read.
oh my gosh, any type of book? Yikes. I'm not a good, I mean, I read, it depends. I think like it depends on the season that somebody is in, right? Because I think I've gone through so many different phases of my life, like especially going from law and politics into tech, and like figuring out what the next chapter is for me, that I don't have one particular book. I think there are a wide variety of books that I've read that have had a major impact in mine. So like one, it's like The Phoenix Project. That's a more technical book. It will definitely, if you have a hard time sleeping, read it. It'll help you. It is like all
I read that one
natural
too.
melon.
Mhm.
Yeah, like it'll knock you out. But it's a
It's
good
all
book
made up, but very
learning.
practical, very realistic
Exactly.
stuff.
Like it's realistic. It makes you think of the team and the company at large, really understands the value that you play in a larger level. I think that's a good book. Um, I would say, yeah, I would also say I've read books on really what we've seen today as far as like the virtual world. So finding loneliness in a very isolated world. And the reason why I read that is because I think a lot of people today, especially in our generation, do not go out of their way to have conversations with people,
Mhm.
right? So for example, I'm 100% remote. I make it a day-to-day job to at least have one call with somebody, because I think not only does that help my network, but I think that helps mental health. I think it helps so many different things. And, every company that I've been at, I have an extensive group of people that I actually consider friends. So I think reading books that apply to your role that are technical, I think they're important, but also reading books that make you broaden or challenge your comfort zone are really important too. And that's all I got as far as books. The rest of them are like dark, scary thrillers that I like to read before bed. So that's all I got for you.
That's a great list to start with. Thank you so much for sharing that, and also with that, thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge, your wisdom, your years of experience. And I think if I could listen to this podcast episode when I was first breaking out of college into my first job, I think I would be miles and miles ahead of where I am today if I knew what you've shared with us in this episode. So Valerie, thank you again so much for joining us. One last question for you before I let you go is, obviously you've given a lot of really, really good nuggets. And I know you mentioned earlier also that you love mentoring and helping people succeed, the next one in line. So if people have more questions, or they want to hire you as a consultant or a Ping or Okta coach, or they will just want to pick your brain on something in this space they're struggling with, what is the best way that people can reach out to you?
I always tell people to reach out to me via LinkedIn.
Hmm.
Um, one, to see if I'm the person that suits what you're looking for, and then yeah, just message me and we'll sync up a time and I'll send out a Zoom link and we'll go from there. My
Perfect.
virtual
Cool.
door is always open. So
Awesome. I'll definitely be sure to include the URL of your LinkedIn profile with this episode. Valerie, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and we'll definitely connect with you hopefully soon in the future. Thank you so much for being on the show.
yeah, thank you. This was great.
Awesome.